Welcome back to another episode of Strange Bar and Grill. Today we have another story that's, you guessed it, very, very strange. A morally complex tale of two men and their need to complete one another. Listen to this story in its entirety, and at the end, I want you to go into the comment section and answer this question in the comments. Was there a crime committed here? I want to hear from you guys, so let me know. But first things first, if you guys like what you're seeing, make sure to hit that like button, join the SBG family by subscribing and hitting that notification button. All right, let's jump right in. The internet is amazing. I think we can all agree on that to some extent. You have unlimited information at your fingertips. It makes it easier to communicate with friends and family all across the globe. You can find like-minded individuals and share interests. You know, if you ever felt like an outcast and you didn't feel like you had anyone to connect with, the internet just kind of brings people closer together, and you can share interests and find people just like you, and you don't feel as alone for a lot of people. You can find that special person out there that completes you, the yin to your yang, because everyone, no matter how weird, strange, whatever, they need to be heard, they need to be seen, they need to be felt, right? I think that's a need that most of us have. You know, everyone just wants to make a connection. Today's story is of a tale of two men that share not the same fantasy, but similar fantasies that kind of fit together and will kind of make them one whole and make them complete and feel complete, make each other feel seen and heard, if you will. This story begins with Armin Meiwes, a computer engineer who grew up in the countryside of Germany. At the age of 8, his father and two older half-brothers, suddenly decided to leave and abandon the family, leaving 8-year-old Armin and his mother to live alone. This left Armin in a deep, deep sadness, and he would develop this very, very strong need to have a male companion in his life, and it just became an obsession of his. Later in his life, after working in the army for 12 years, he moved back home to take care of his ailing mother until she passed away in the late 1990s. Lonely and living alone in his very large childhood home that he grew up in, Armin discovered the internet. Armin had access to these fetish websites every night, and he would get online and connect with other men who shared his same desires. So enter Bernd Brandes. He was just 3 years older than Meiwes, and he was also a computer engineer. He was a resident of Berlin, and just like Armin, had his own set of different types of urges, different from Armin's, but together it kind of completed this circle for them, and a connection was made. So Bernd connected with Armin on a lifestyle forum, and the two actually met in person on March 9th, 2001. And prior to meeting, the two men would stay up all night chatting on this forum, exchanging stories, telling about their different fantasies and what they kind of wanted to do with one another. And neither could believe how lucky they were that they actually found someone that was going to help them kind of live out and role play this fantasies that they had together. Like I said, they were different from each other, but together it kind of completed their circle, and it gave them hope that, hey, we finally found somebody. They've been down this path before where they thought they found someone to kind of help them kind of play out this fantasy of theirs, and you know, people didn't take them seriously, and last minute they would kind of pull out and just kind of leave them hanging. Both men had been disappointed in the past, but it looks like it was going to happen. It was actually going to happen this time. So on that day of March 9th, 2001, the two men met up. They spent the day at Meiwes' house, and they just helped each other fulfill their dreams. They had a freshly cooked meal that they shared together. And at the end of the day, Bernd, he climbed into a nice hot bath to relax. The day was just perfect. They actually got to spend time together and live out their fantasy. It was a day that they would just never forget. And they actually recorded the full thing. So the two discussed previously that they would film this whole interaction out, so Meiwes can actually relive this dream over and over again. But let's go back a little bit here. So I refer to these two men as having a need to complete one another, like two missing pieces to their complex puzzle, if you will. To put it bluntly, Armin's urge and his fantasy was He wanted to eat somebody. He wanted to commit cannibalism. And Bernd's fantasy was to actually be castrated and devoured by somebody. Again, the yin to the yang coming together, completing them as one. After Armin's father and his two older half-brothers left him, that really just left a mark on him. It really put him in a strange headspace, if you will. Like I said, he developed this really obsessive need to have a male companion with him at all times, and he described that eating someone was a way to absorb a person, have that male companion, that male figure with him at all times. And that's what he truly believed. And over the years, it's just kind of snowballed and became bigger and bigger. Now, I'm unsure as to why Bernd kind of developed his fetish of wanting to be devoured and eaten. I know when he was young, his mother died, I believe, when he was very young age, around the age of 4. He did come out to his father as a gay man, and his father basically shunned him, and I know that caused a rift between them as well, so there's some trauma there as well. That might have led to this path that he kind of went on there. But I mean, a lot of people probably go through that and don't develop that type of fetish, but again, I'm not here to judge anyone, but it's definitely a strange one, definitely a bizarre way to react to that. And again, I mentioned that the two met online. Well, the two met online at a online forum called the Cannibal Cafe, a website where people would come together with these cannibal fantasies and these dark fantasies, and they'd come together and discuss them. For the most part, these people were harmless in a sense because no one ever actually acted and actually committed any crimes on these websites. It was more of like a role-playing type thing where people would say, hey, I'm into being eaten, or I want to eat someone, and it was like a role-play kind of sexual fantasy type thing. This is what happened on March 9th, 2001, when they actually met up. So after they arrived at Meiwes' house, they got right to it. They amputated and tried to eat Brandis's genitals. It was very rubbery and hard. It was kind of hard to chew, but they tried to consume his genitals. He bled out for several hours before finally hopping into a hot bath to kind of relax. At which point he lost so much blood at this point, he was too weak to actually get up out of the bath. And he was falling in and out of consciousness the whole time. And then very late in that evening, after much hesitation, according to Meiwes, Armin Meiwes stabbed him in the neck. And again, this whole thing was being recorded and it's on video for Armin to rewatch this video over and over as he seen fit. And again, the two men agreed upon this. This was not a abduction, kidnapping, murder type situation. The two men agreed on this. This was their fantasy being played out, and it was all on tape. And later on, Bernd Brandis's body was dismembered, his flesh stored in the freezer to be consumed at a later date. And for the next 10 months, Armin would take out some of Bernd's flesh, he would thaw it, cook it, and eat it. And it was a candlelit affair with red wine and the whole thing, like he really made it into an event. And he ultimately consumed roughly 45 pounds of Bernd's flesh. Just some backstory here. Bernd's boyfriend did report him missing back in 2001 on March 11th, but ultimately the police could not find any trace of what happened to him. Bernd did, he did like scrub his laptop, so he got rid of all traces of communication with Armin, so they just had no clue what happened to him. But Armin, on the other hand, did not follow suit. He was back on the same cannibal forum. He was posting ads, posting chats, trying to find his next victim, depending on what you believe, his next willing participant. And he was basically bragging that he actually met someone, murdered them, cooked them, and ate them. Or again, depending on how you look at this case, did not murder them, but killed them, cooked them, and ate them. Maybe that's more accurate depending on which side of the fence you're on here. During an exchange in the summer of 2002, Armin was bragging to an Austrian student about his crime that he committed. And the student was deeply disturbed by what Armin told him about him killing, cooking, and eating a person, that he alerted the authorities immediately, like he was freaked out. The investigators secured a search warrant in December of 2002 and conducted a surprise raid on Armin's property. They retrieved Brandis's remains from the freezer, his bones and internal organs from the garden, and as well as the 4-hour-long videotape that documented the whole disgusting process. However, Germany actually didn't have any laws against cannibalism at the time, and even the prosecution conceded that the victim consented in every move, including his own murder as proven in the videotape. So Meiwes, who pretty much admitted to everything right away up front, provided the videotape, provided all the evidence, was initially convicted of manslaughter and received 8.5 years in prison. However, prosecutors came back with an appeal in 2005. They argued that the component of sexual gratification involved in the crime made it a straightforward homicide, and they used the videotape as proof he wanted to relive this fantasy over and over and over again. This second trial ended in a murder conviction in 2006 with the new sentence of life in prison. And on top of that, psychiatrists concluded that the defendant couldn't be cured or rehabilitated, and he would always just be a potential risk and just never let him out. And courts in 2018 felt the same way, and they rejected Armin Meiwes' request for an early release. So what do you guys think? Was a crime committed here? Can Armin hide behind the fact that this was a sick fantasy that they both had and they both agreed to, and Brandis's agreement was on tape? He says this is what he wants to do, but clearly both parties have some strong mental illness here where they would want to even carry something like that out. Even with approval from both parties, there's got to be some accountability here, just knowing that killing someone is just illegal to begin with, even if they consent, even if they want it, right? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm curious to see your take is. I'm curious to see what your take is on this. Definitely a strange one. Anyway, guys, if you guys are new to my channel, make sure to tip that like button, join that SBG family by subscribing and hitting that notification button, guys. If you know like-minded people, share the video, share my other videos, go check out a couple more videos. And as always, if you want something custom ordered, leave it down in the comment section. All right, guys, but I do want to hear your comments on this one, because this one's kind of a weird one that has me on the fence. So I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. All right, guys, be good, be safe,